we were invited to have a closer look at the Thok Gram and the Thok Gram RC in Italy, and we sent Fredrik.
Yeah. So I went to Castiglione del Pascaia, or Castiglione della Pascaia, I think, something like that, to try the new Thok Gram.
And this wasn't an event like we typically usually go to. This was the Thok.
This was the Thok Tribe. So the first day we were only press there. We got to meet the Thok team and some other partners. And then this was on Friday. And then on Saturday, about I think 400 plus Thokers arrived to create the Thok Tribe, which was then happening that Thok does every year, where they invite everyone that has a Thok bike to come there and ride with them and share a great meal and have a good time.
Nice. So that's the Thok Tribe. There are people from basically everywhere, or at least everywhere in Europe, perhaps, from different countries.
Yeah, I think so. Mostly Italians, of course.
Yeah.
But I think everyone is invited as long as they have a Thok bike and want to bring it there and ride with them.
Yeah, cool. Nice that they're trying to create sort of a community around the brand.
Absolutely. And they started making bikes only 6 years ago. So actually over 400 people showing up shows that there are a lot of people enjoying their bikes.
So the Thok Ram, it's sort of a new bike, but basically it's the carbon version of their old TK01 aluminium bike. Same suspension travel, similar geometry. The carbon frame makes this bike sort of the high-end Thok, while the TK01 alloy is more of an entry-level bike. And we rode the TK01 a couple of years ago. Not too heavy of a bike, 630 watt-hours battery, Shimano EP8 motor. And after seeing some of the videos from your ride, some of the terrain reminded me of the terrain we rode a couple of years ago. Towards the end of the ride, steep downhill section, very tight turns, lots of braking, and we rode the entry-level model with the SRAM level T, I think, brakes. And I still remember the arm pump towards the end. So, what do you think? How much does this new Gram and Gram RC remind you of the old bike?
Well, there is some difference, to be sure. You mentioned the brakes. On the Gram RC you have the Shimano XT brakes, which are great. That's one of my favorite brakes. And then on the Gram version you had the SRAM DD8, I think, which were also good brakes.
Okay.
I didn't notice the hand pump as I did on the TK1 for sure.
Oh, great.
And during the descents, I also felt a bit more confident, you could say.
Yeah.
Especially on the Gram RC, where you have the Fox factory float.
The 38 forks and
the X2, I believe, shock, which were fantastic. Felt really confident going down. Tracked the ground really well. Yeah,
I saw you rode some properly, not really trails, but more of rocky cattle roads, whatever.
Yeah.
With lots of small rocks and very chattery.
Very chattery. And that first hill I just bombed down and it just kept up with me all the way, so that was great.
Nice. And it's not like it's poor suspension on the base level model. The Fox Rhythm 38, still I think it's a very good fork. The Fox DPS shock, sure it's a noticeable step down from the RC model, but still great suspension for an entry-level bike, although it's not really an entry level. It's 7,500 euros ex VAT.
Yeah. So calling it an entry level might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. And about 10,000 euros for the Gram RC.
Yeah.
Extra VAT.
So I used a bit longer time to get the suspension setup correct on the Gram, but when I first got it dialed in, it performed very well as well.
Yeah.
So I tried also bombing down some other steep farm roads with a lot of large loose rocks. I think I was up in 60 kilometers an hour or something there, and I didn't got scared, so
Nice. Remembering the old TK01, it was a very stable, confidence-inspiring bike. You could feel like the 160 rear, 170 mil travel front. It felt a small step up from the regular 160 mil travel bikes we usually ride, like your Trek rail. But going through those sharp turns we talked about, it felt, you could feel it was a long bike. And even though it wasn't very heavy, with a claimed weight of 24.5-ish kilos, you were held back a bit by the bike. How was that with the new Gram RC, comparing it to like the rail? Is it noticeably more bike to handle to get through the sharp turns?
I don't think it's definitely not a step down from my regular bike, it's rather a step up. It felt quite good to handle in the turns, and as soon as you get to just a tiny bit of speed, so you can whip it around.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the riding, very slow speed, fighting to get the bike through the turns, and from almost a standstill, you had like 1 or 2 meters before reaching a drop. So often you would just roll over the drop because you're carrying very little speed, but it seemed you were able to get in a few pedal strokes and lift the front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when we rode the EP8 on the TK01, that was one of the first EP8s that came to the country, and the software wasn't fully up to date, I think, so it didn't feel that strong. That was of course updated. And now they're using the same motor, but of course the new software. And just getting a few pedal strokes in, getting enough speed, and you could easily jump those smaller ups.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because it's the EP801 on both bikes.
No. I asked about it, and I think they're going to use the EP801, but I don't think Shimano has a possibility to deliver that many EP801s yet. So maybe it will switch to that in the future.
Yeah. I believe they said that. Now that you mention it, they will go EP801, but the production rate is too low, so they can't get a hold of a motor just yet.
Yeah. But their bikes are ready for it.
Yeah. The old TK01 was a great climber, and the jump tree on the new bike is fairly similar. 450 mil chainstays, 64 degrees for the head tube angle, as it should be for a relatively long travel bike. Wheelbase 1275 millimeters for a size large, and a properly steep C-tube angle of 78 degrees. How did you find climbing?
Climbing was great on both the Gram and the Gram RC.
Yeah, no difference between them, I guess.
No, not really. They don't hold back, and some of the trails going uphill were really steep, and then you get these 180-degree turns. Of course, then when it's really steep, you gotta get over a bit, but going through those turns was easy, and going up straight up the farm roads with the loose gravel was a treat.
How about on the flatter trails? High speed, low speed, usually a short travel bike, lightweight bike, can be lots of fun, just going as fast as you can, trying to jump over small obstacles. How did you find the Thok Gram and the Gram RC? Any difference between them?
I found them both really playful. They were great handlers. There was a lot of single track trail there, with some trees, low hanging trees that are tied, so you gotta flick it around in between the trees. And I think both of them managed really well on those kind of trails. I don't know if I had noticed any big difference on that kind of riding. There is of course a bit of a weight difference between the RC and the Gram, but I didn't really notice during that kind of riding.
I don't think it's that much. It's like 300 grams. Thok claimed 23.3 kilos for the RC model, 23.6 for the base model, and I believe it was 24.7 for the TK01 entry-level model. Speaking of weight, what's really cool about the Gram bikes is the maximum permissible weight.
Yeah, so if you're a heavier rider, that's absolutely one of the bikes to consider.
Yeah, I think it was like 140 kilos in addition to the bike weight, so 163 something total permissible weight.
Right. So we seldom see that over 100, 120 kilos, do we?
Yeah, 120, 130 seems fairly common. 140 is like the high end, and here you're 160 plus. And I guess they got solid wheels. Often the wheel set is the reason for the increased maximum weight. The Gram has Thok drift wheels, which I've never heard of. And the Gram RC has Crank Brothers synthesis. And the rest of the specs, we mentioned the suspension. Just like the old TK01, the Gram bikes too are mullet bikes. The base level model has got SRAM SX and the NX components. And the top of the line RC has got what I used to call all the gears you would ever need, the SRAM XS wireless 12-speed. I really like that one. And sure, it's a few steps down from the top of the line, but still great performing drivetrain. The battery by Shimano is 630 watt hours and it's easily detachable.
The Thok TK01 had some extra stays, brace.
Yeah, creating those triangle shapes in the frame.
Yeah, and they continued that on the Gram.
Yeah, they took it a step further even.
Yeah, I think so. So there is even more. And then so it makes for a bit of a unique design.
Yeah. Even though this bike has got the old Shimano EP800, I'm pretty sure it's the newer EP800, let's say the EP800.5, the updated motor with less noise. How did you find noise while riding this bike?
I have to say I didn't really think about it.
No.
Of course you can hear the motor as you do on most e-bikes, but especially going downhill, well, that's not an issue, and going uphill I had other things to worry about. So
yeah, going through the footage from your ride, you could hear the motor rattle while descending on a few occasions, but very little. So the Thok Gram and the Gram RC, what's the verdict?
Great bikes. I think they've hit the nail when creating a top-end, top-tier bike. Really playful, really good at climbing, a great ride.
Yeah, there's a bit of money to save on the entry-level models, and to me Thok has been a bit about cheaper, more inexpensive bikes. But this new Gram RC, it's a step into the more world of high-end bikes, and as far as I can tell, they're doing it very well.
Yeah, I think so.
That's it. Appreciate any likes and subscribes. Thanks for watching.